stretching.
So these are the strengthening exercises that I recommend for postpartum women. We're going to start with laying on our backs, and then we'll progress to standing on our knees and then standing up, starting with the pelvic floor. So the first thing that you want to do is lay on your back. And it may not seem like much of an exercise, but it is. So you want to place your first 3 fingers, one above your hip bone, just inside your hip bone, one, your middle finger on your hip bone but a little bit inside, and then your ring finger below your hip bone on the inside. So the first thing that you want to do is pull up through your pelvic floor. You'll feel a little bit of tension go into your ring finger. The next step is to pull your belly button up towards your chest. The third step is to pull your belly button in, and you'll feel each one of these steps. You'll feel your finger pop up a little bit when the muscles contract. So with the first step, when you're pulling up through your pelvic floor, it's similar to the feeling of trying to not pee your pants, which we all know because we just had a baby, or imagine pulling a tampon up an elevator. The next step, as I said, is pulling your belly button up. You're pulling your belly button up as though you were zipping up the lower part of your stomach. Then the third part is to draw your belly button in slightly towards your spine. Now this is not the same action as sucking your belly in as though you're, trying to look thinner. It's just a slight contraction. As I said, you'll feel your fingers pop up, and you want to make sure that you're doing it on both sides so you can feel it on both sides. The next, so once you have your pelvic floor established and your other abdominal muscles, your transverse abdominis is established, you want to bring your hands away down to the sides, bring the soles of your feet onto the ground or the carpet or blanket, whatever. And these exercises control the feeling of pelvic tilt. So ideally we want a neutral spine whenever we're walking around or lying down. But this exercise gets you to the idea of understanding where your pelvis should sit in space. So the first part of the exercise, you want to inhale, you want to arch your back quite a bit, so you're bringing your belly button up towards the ceiling. You want to do that with an inhale, and draw your lower ribs together. It's the same feeling as if you were laughing really hard. You can even practice going ha 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 to draw your lower ribs together. It's going to give you a little bit more extension out of your spine. Now with your lower ribs staying together, on your exhale you want to press your lower back into the ground or the mat or the blanket. Now this feeling, again, you want to scoop all those muscles up that we just practiced with the 3-finger exercise. So then you'll inhale, arch your back, draw your lower ribs together, exhale, pull your belly button towards your spine, draw your pubic bone up towards your chest. Again, inhale, exhale. You want to do that 8 to 10 times. Whatever's comfortable for you, maybe starting with 8 and then 3 sets of 8 to 10. Also, another thing that you want to make sure is when you're arching your back and pressing it into the ground, you're not extending your neck, your chin up towards the ceiling. You want to keep a slight tuck in the chin so the back of your neck is nice and long. So after you practice the arching and straightening, come to a place that's somewhere in the middle. You should be able to bring the back of your hand to your lower back. Now that's a neutral spot. If there's a lot of space, an excess of space, then you probably have an anterior pelvic tilt. That's really common post-pregnancy because our bellies have to come out. If you're the opposite, where you're tucking quite a bit and there's no way for you to get your hand back there, then again you may want to relax a little bit and adjust it so that you can bring the back of your hand. Just a good indicator to know what a neutral spine feels like. So our next exercise is camel. And I'll demonstrate how you want to measure from the front, and then I'll show from the back. So you want to come to your knees, hip-width distance apart. A good way to measure that is to drop your two fists between your knees. And then I'll come to the side so that you can see. So you're standing on your knees. Bring the backs, your palms to the back of your pelvis, so you're putting them in your hip pockets. Now again, you want to pull your pubic bone towards your chest bone slightly so that you have a neutral spine. You can feel this too because you'll feel the back of your pelvis will start to kind of flatten out. Draw your elbows together and then reach your chest up towards the ceiling. Your gaze will also go towards the ceiling. Now, as you practice, you slowly walk your gaze across the ceiling. Notice that my hips are staying forward, they're not coming back. So you want to keep your hips forward, continue to draw your pelvic floor in, draw your lower ribs together, just like we practiced the lapping muscles. And then you come to a comfortable point, stay here for 3 to 5 breaths, and then inhale, slowly come up. One section of your spine at a time, your head comes up last, and then sit back, hips to heels. You can do this a couple times if you're comfortable. And please don't progress any further. You should never feel any pinching in your back. Another way to practice, if you're not sure if your hips are staying, is to come up against a wall, press your pubic bone into the wall, and then go into the pose. Your pubic bone should maintain contact with the wall the entire time. Our next exercise, many of you may be familiar with from pregnancy exercise. It's cat-cow. But again, we're going to really focus on the abdominal muscles with this exercise. So, with an inhale, you'll drop your belly, just like we did a moment ago laying on our backs. Drop your belly, pull your shoulders down and away, draw your lower ribs together, pull your pelvic floor up and in even here. And if you want to add a little practice with the feet, you can bring the tops of your toes to the mat or the blanket. Now with an exhale, you'll round your spine like an angry cat, press the tops of your feet into the mat and press your hands away. Again, you're really scooping through the belly here, really pulling the lower abdominals in. And then you'll inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. You can practice that. You can do that 6 times. And again, you know, it's a really good practice for loosening up your lower back and getting those abdominals to contract. The third exercise is pelvic tilt standing with a chest expansion. Oftentimes during pregnancy and breastfeeding, we tend to become a little kyphotic and curved in our upper back. So this exercise practices opening up through the chest but maintaining that neutral pelvic, or the neutral pelvis. So you want to come to standing again, feet hip-width distance apart. You can again always measure that by dropping your 2 fists between your feet to measure that. I'll stand from the side again so that you can demonstrate. So again, you can do this standing in front of the wall so that you can press your pubic bone into the wall and maintain contact the entire time. Once you tilt your pelvis so that you have a neutral spine, you're pulling your lower abdominals in and you're pulling your belly button up and in slightly, just like we practiced on the ground. Then you'll bring your 2 fists behind your back and you can bring the palms to touch. Keep your elbows bent for a moment and then squeeze your elbows in towards one another. From there, you'll press your palms, your knuckles down to the ground. Turn to the side again so that you can see. From here, continue to press your pubic bone again towards the wall or scoop it under, and then slowly press your knuckles down towards the mat or the ground and open up through the chest. Again, rather than dumping your head back, keep a slight tuck in your chin so that you're not pinching your cervical spine. Keep pulling your belly button in, even though it doesn't look like you're doing a lot. If you're engaging your pelvic floor, you're pulling your belly button in and up, and you're drawing your lower ribs together, take 3 to 5 breaths, you'll begin to feel this, and you'll even work up a little bit of a sweat. After you've taken 3 to 5 breaths, come out of the pose, maybe shake your hands a little bit. You can do that 2 to 3 times. So that's the beginning. Oh, and you pause it for a second.